Welcome to Watching Washington, a public affairs program from the Brian Lamb School of Communication at Purdue University. It's Sunday, November 2nd, and I'm Paige Gonzalez.
And I'm Courtney Bragg. Here's a recap of the top stories of the week.
A federal judge extended a temporary block on reduction in force, or RIF notices, to federal workers on Tuesday. Judge Susan Ilston, who issued the first block, granted the union's request for a preliminary injunction. The injunction prevents the Trump administration from giving out any more RIF notices while also pausing notices on union members. This injunction was administered despite the Trump administration's appeal.
Many corporations are also letting go of employees by the masses. Amazon said it will lay off 14,000 employees this year in an effort to make way for the integration of AI agents. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy said in a blog post that mass integration of AI agents will increase efficiency gains enough to allow a mass reduction in human workforce. Other major companies, including Paramount, Target, and UPS, have issued layoffs this week, although none of them are due to the integration of AI technology.
Due to the ongoing shutdown, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, will be suspended November 1st, should a federal funding bill not be agreed upon. SNAP benefits assist 40 million people across the country, and the suspension of the program would leave those people without a clear means for getting food. According to NBC, many states will turn SNAP members to food banks, with some governors providing emergency funds for food banks. The Trump administration has made it clear that they do not intend on dipping into emergency funds to protect SNAP, and Senator John Thune defended this decision.
I think the White House obviously is faced with a tough decision. They have to figure out how do they reallocate, reprioritize funding, where it goes, where it doesn't go. And they're doing everything they can legally and with the capacity that they have available to them to try and make this, I think, as painless as possible. But there is a point at which they don't have that capacity anymore. And I think we've reached that point.
Governors from several states have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration, arguing that SNAP benefits cannot be legally cut off. A federal judge will look at the case and may force the administration to dip into its emergency funds. As the shutdown has now lasted over a month, it is on its way to becoming the longest shutdown in history, should a funding bill not be passed soon.
On Tuesday, the House Oversight Committee released an investigative report into former President Biden's use of the AutoPen during his last term. The report is titled The Biden AutoPen Presidency: Decline, Delusion, and Deception in the White House. It details how Biden's use of the AutoPen was concealed by his advisors and political operatives during his mental and cognitive decline. The report also declared Biden's pardons as void because there are no records that he made those decisions on his own. The committee chairman, Representative James R. Comer from Kentucky, wrote a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi requesting the Department of Justice to open a full investigation into all executive decisions made during the Biden administration. Bondi responded on social media, writing that the DOJ is reviewing the report and is willing to work with House Republicans to, quote, deliver accountability for the American people, unquote.
The appeals court that allowed National Guard deployment in Oregon is now reconsidering its decision. In September, President Trump deployed 200 troops to Portland, Oregon, to protect federal buildings amidst protests. In response, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, along with Oregon's Attorney General and Portland's mayor, filed a lawsuit to block the deployment. They argued the protests were not large or violent enough to warrant a federal presence. 2 restraining orders were put in effect against the troops. Despite this, troops still arrived at the Portland ICE facility on October 4th. Then on October 20th, the appeals court ruled 2-1 in favor of the deployment, an action which froze the restraining orders. This decision was appealed on Tuesday and will be heard by a larger group of 11 judges.
Indiana Governor Mike Braun has called lawmakers to the State House for a special session next week. Braun has asked legislators to bring the state's tax code in line with recent major federal changes, warning of, quote, discrepancies between Indiana and federal law that could complicate 2025 tax filings, end quote. This season could be used to discuss redistricting as well. Indiana isn't alone in rethinking its political map. States across the country are also taking a second look at redistricting. In California, Democrats are considering making changes that could add new left-leaning districts, while in Texas, the Senate approved the new congressional map to maximize Republican representation.
President Donald Trump has wrapped up a 5-day tour in Asia, meeting with key officials from Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, and others from the region. Trump started off in Malaysia for the first leg of the tour and attended the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The biggest headlines from the summit came in the brokerage of a peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia. The signing was followed with a new trade deal between Thailand, Cambodia, and the United States, with the BBC reporting, quote, Trump making it plain he intends to use business deals to pressure countries to make peace. The second leg of the tour featured a visit to the new Prime Minister of Japan, Sanai Takaichi. Trump and Takaichi signed an agreement securing critical rare earth minerals in response to China's near monopoly and restricted trade of the materials. Further, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick announced that various Japanese companies will be investing $490 billion in the United States. Finally, in the most anticipated leg of the tour, President Trump visited South Korea. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung signed a $350 billion investment deal with the United States in exchange for lower tariffs. On Thursday, October 30th, Trump held a high-stakes meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Busan, South Korea. The meeting resulted in the U.S. lowering the fentanyl tariff on Chinese goods from 20% to 10%. In return, China will purchase American farm products and make it easier to buy rare earth metals. However, no trade deal between the U.S. and China has been officially signed.
Up next, Israel strikes Gaza after Hamas violates their ceasefire deal.
Plus, Jamaica recovers from Hurricane Melissa. Stay with us. More Watching Washington next.
I mean, every year is different, but it hasn't changed that much. Our league is just ominous, and you better lace them up tight and be ready to play every night. If not, you're going to get beat.
On Tuesday night, over 100 Palestinians were killed in a wave of Israeli strikes in Gaza. The Israeli military said its strikes were a response to violations by Hamas of the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal. U.S. President Donald Trump maintained that nothing would jeopardize the ceasefire, but added that Israel should hit back when its soldiers were targeted. Israel's defense minister accused Hamas of an attack in Gaza that killed an Israeli soldier and of breaching the terms on returning deceased hostages' bodies. Hamas said it had no connection to the attack and that Israel was trying to undermine the deal. The Israeli strikes hit homes, schools, and residential blocks in Gaza City, northern and southern Gaza. The strikes, the deadliest since the ceasefire began on October 10th, marked the most serious challenge to the tenuous truce to date.
Jamaica is recovering after Hurricane Melissa, one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes on record, struck the island with sustained winds of up to 185 miles per hour. More than 500,000 homes lost power, and officials report extensive flooding and damage to hospitals, roads, and communities across the country. Emergency crews are working to reach affected communities and restore services. The Jamaican government hopes to reopen airports soon to allow supplies and aid to reach the hardest hit areas. The State Department says it has deployed a disaster assistance response team and U.S.-based urban search and rescue teams to help coordinate relief and provide support. Officials say the recovery will take time, but emergency teams are on the ground. And communities are beginning the process of rebuilding after one of the strongest storms to hit Jamaica in decades.
A French criminologist, Alain Bauer, says that the Louvre heist was a well-conceived operation, despite the thieves leaving over 150 traces of evidence, including strands of hair, fingerprints, and other DNA. Bauer, who is well acquainted with the French system, said it's likely police will soon arrest the remaining 2 suspects after 2 arrests were made over the weekend.
But there is like more than 150 traces of a lot of various things, DNA, hairs, fingerprints. There's a lot of things that are collected. And yes, but this part is just the end of the operation. Everything else was pretty well conceived. But the escape was the worst part because of the arrival of the police, the move by the guards, and the ability of one citizen to intervene to save the truck from the fire.
Daylight saving time came to an end today. The clocks fell back an hour this morning at 2 a.m. Indiana first adopted daylight saving time back in 2006, but the time change has been controversial since its introduction to the U.S. in the 1970s. Members of Congress from both sides of the aisle have made proposals to abolish daylight saving over the years, but there are others who have introduced bills to make it permanent.
It's now time for a brief Purdue Roundup. An expedition to find Amelia Earhart's missing plane in the Pacific Ocean was postponed until 2026. The expedition was originally scheduled to start this month, but was postponed because of delayed permit approval from Kira Bass. We also have good news for Purdue alumni. On November 13th, they will have access to the Google Career Certificate Program for free, thanks to Purdue's partnership with Google.
Our in-studio guest this week is Carissa Wright.
The full interview just ahead on Watching Washington.
Imagine a world where Olympics and Paralympics are unified as one, and where all athletes at all levels have equal opportunities to play and perform at their full potential.
Athletics has been such an influential and transformative aspect of my life. So to me, RISE is about ensuring that every person that has the desire to participate in sport has the opportunity to do so.
This organization is about recognition. We believe in recognizing excellence where it is found, especially in Paralympic sports.
RISE is about driving change in our community and beyond. We hope that through our events and initiatives, we can galvanize people for our cause and inspire them to create an ever-growing network to help achieve our mission.
It's about connecting people of various backgrounds and who truly care about creating meaningful change together.
We develop projects and hold events to bring people together at the interface of inclusivity, sports, and engineering.
Our goal is to promote the equality of all sports and to improve sports performance and accessibility.
Join us so that you can have a major contribution in creating meaningful change.
We have a special guest with us this week.
Carissa Wright is a transformation strategist at Booz Allen, a consulting firm that specializes in national security, defense, and technology. Let's go now to Watching Washington's Maria Vaughter, standing by with this week's interview.
Thank you, that's right. I've got Carissa Wright with me today to discuss the topic of government contractors and the government downsizing effort over recent months. Thank you for being here. My first question, can you share for our viewers the connection between Booz Allen and the U.S. government and the role that you play in facilitating that?
Sure. So Booz Allen is a contractor that provides technology solutions for the government. We develop cybersecurity, data solutions, artificial intelligence. We modernize systems in support of mostly defense and intelligence operations. My role is to create strategies for any type of solution, build tools that manage the performance of the different solutions, and then I lead teams of technical SMEs, subject matter experts who design and build the products for the clients.
Awesome. So kind of going into a little bit deeper into that relationship, how does that change as like there's transitions from one administration to the next. You know, you're a public company, so you're subject to regulations, and just the interests of each administration is different. So how does that work?
Yeah. So, well, with every new administration, there are always policy changes. So we expect that, and we actively plan and prepare when we know that there's an administration change coming, um, because everyone has different goals, different ideas about how to manage their funding. We kind of proactively monitor for policy changes, no matter if it's during the administration or I guess more actively during the change. We monitor for policy shifts and things, really just stay in close communications with our clients and what's happening in the administration so that we can manage the contracts, do modifications to the contracts, figure out how they're, the continuation of them. And so it's really just about staying on top of it and being knowledgeable about how it's going to affect each and every contract that we support.
Yeah. So my next question is, what do people not know about how government agencies work together with contractors? Are there things that maybe aren't necessarily public knowledge or anything like that?
I think the thing that people would mostly be surprised about is how we become part of the same team, where there's really no separation. We all have the same mission, we share the same goals, and we have to work together every day. And we have a lot of close relationships with our clients, same as what we do with our teams. And oftentimes, somebody new coming in wouldn't be able to tell whether you were a contractor or a government employee because we just collaborate and we team so well.
Yeah. So kind of going into more current, context, how has the downsizing of the government under the Trump administration and recent layoffs during the shutdown impacted your company's relationship with the government, your role?
Well, I mean, apart from the fact that when our clients have to halt work due to the shutdown, to layoffs, cuts, I mean, our work on the contracts stop too. They basically become frozen. Um, and then there's the fact that there's no new contracts and awards being made. Um, Modifications, extensions to contracts, it all stops. As does all of our communication with our clients. There are payment delays, stoppages since we are paid by the government. So, everybody just kind of becomes frozen in time a little bit.
Yeah. Um, so there's a lot of different, perspectives going around about the downsizing, that maybe contractors are really doing a lot of the work of government workers or that the government's not making good use of its resources, but then it's understandable that people are concerned about losing their jobs and such. Is there truth to that from your perspective? Like, does the government need to be streamlined, and at what point has that gone too far, do you think?
Um, I don't know, to answer your question backwards, if we'll ever know at what point, at least right now, if it's gone too far. I think time will only tell that. Um, I want to be able to be honest and say that I do think that the government's probably too big. I think everybody in the government and even in contracting knows that it's it's a little bigger than it needs to be, and probably we do have a lot more people than we need on contracts, and um, there's a lot of skill overlap, a lot of roles and responsibility overlap, and so anytime you get in that situation, then there's room for downsizing, and I think everybody has always known that it's a risk, and it's just happening now. It's been a threat for a long time, and I think now it's just it's upon us. So, but I don't know. I think that this whole thing. Cuts are also the result of policy changes in administration. Obviously with the Trump administration putting DOGE in place to cut costs and staff. But I think that a lot of times we see in changes in the government that the government's actually very resilient, as are the contracting companies. And oftentimes a little bit of a shakeup is good, even though it's painful when we're going through it. We typically always come back stronger, and it just says a lot about really the people, I think, on both sides.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this kind of goes along with maybe what you were just saying, but there's maybe always kind of been some tension and conflict between, do we have government agencies do this job or do we outsource it to contractors? And there's kind of pros and cons for both. What do you think the right balance is or the right distribution based on your experience?
I think it would be impossible for the government to have on staff all of the, I'll say, subject matter experts, be it technical or otherwise, that they need just in case that work comes to fruition. That's where the contracting companies are really needed. I mean, they all have a specific niche, and different skill set, different talent that they bring to the table, and when we actually partner together as well, so that we can bring the best solutioning to the government, no matter what it is. But I think that it would be impossible for the government to keep all that talent on, and people would get bored, and they would only be needed at certain times. But here we can that's how we balance it. I think is, they leverage us when they need us, and then that's the end of the contract, and we move on, and we help a different government agency or organization using that same talent pool.
Mm-hmm. And just to back up a little bit, like what is that contract process like? Like do you have meetings like leading up to it, or is it kind of you already have a relationship from past contracts?
Yeah, it's actually very complicated, and a lot of people really despise this part because it's so complex to even to get the work, because there are a lot of regulations around how you actually win work and even bid to win the work. But yes, there's a total we call it a proposal process. The government puts out something that they call a request for proposal, an RFP. And anybody who wants to bid on that work, any contracting company, would submit a proposal, and they would kind of create what their approach would be, what their technical approach would be, how they would staff the work, how they would manage the work, control the costs, control the risks. And you submit that, and then on the government side, they kind of go through and they have a panel that scores each one of the proposals. And in the end, someone is awarded, that contract launches, and the work is executed. If that work comes to an end and it's a continuation of work, then we have a rebid, and you are bidding with an incumbent. Sometimes you're the incumbent and you need to protect your work, and other times somebody might come in and say, hey, we can do better at a lower cost. And so it's very, very competitive and very highly regulated.
Interesting. So in a couple weeks, you'll be coming to Purdue for a conference. Can you tell us a little bit about that and Purdue's, connection with defense and cybersecurity contractors?
Sure. So Purdue has a week for, it's a National Defense and Security Week, November 10th through the 14th, and it's a 5-day event. And there will be all kinds of amazing things that Purdue's doing. They're having a career fair on one of the days, and an expo on another day, and it allows the Purdue students, faculty and staff to come and talk to the companies in security and defense, and learn what they do, and learn, maybe would that be a good fit for them? Kind of have a better understanding of what's actually gone on in defense, because we're going to have a lot of panels, a lot of keynote speakers from the defense and security, the leadership, actually, the Space Force, and what else is going on. There's going to be a kickoff on Monday, and it's going to be a flyover at noon, so everybody loves that. A flyover is exciting, and Veterans Day is that week, so there's going to be a Veterans Day ceremony. And there's something for everybody, and there's an agenda posted online. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to figure out in their schedule when they can get over there, and just see what all the hype is about in national defense and security.
Awesome. So my final question is, as we were just saying, there's a lot of Purdue students that will end up working, for the government or for contractors. What knowledge should they try to get ahead of time, like now, just of how the government works and how that works, or what did you wish you knew going into this job?
I think that one of the things that people overlook when it comes to working in this space is the need for a clearance and a security clearance. And whatever the work is, typically it requires some kind of level of security clearance, and it takes a long time to get. And I think it's off-putting for some people, but I know that Purdue has a lot of sources that help students get clearances in advance so that they are positioned to have that in hand, ready to apply to companies. So, and I don't know how well advertised that is, but it does exist. So if students are interested and they want a smooth transition, I would recommend that they get their security clearance in advance. As far as what I wish that I would have known, I think that I just didn't realize, the depth and the breadth of the kinds of work, the kinds of opportunity out there. You don't really have to settle for something, or maybe you get your foot in the door, but whatever it is that you want to do, however it is you want to apply your skills, whatever it is you're interested in, it's really exciting to know that somewhere in some organization, a government agency or organization, they're doing that work. People would be amazed at where they can find their own niche and then kind of use that to build a platform for, maneuvering over into other areas and then building the career out from there. The government contracting work is it's very fulfilling. We're supporting the mission. We're supporting a lot of the components of our country, and that's a feel good job. That's a feel good job to be a part of that. So I would encourage everybody who's not thinking about going in that direction to definitely get there that week of November 10th through the 14th, see what it's all about. And
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have today. Thank you to our guest, Carissa Wright, for being with us today, and thank you for watching. See you next time on Watching Washington.